Welcome to No Excuses. Today we're going to do a book review, and this book is a good one. The book we're reading today is The Elephant in the Room by Tommy Tomlinson. This is honestly just a memoir. It's a memoir about a man who found himself to be overweight all of his life. He talks about how he was a young child and he was getting his clothes from Sears because it was the only place that had the husky size clothes, and how he was overweight as a child and it just kept escalating. And how when the book was written, when he had his wake-up call, he was like 475 pounds. It was a good book for me because I honestly could have written almost every word that he said. Well, except for the fact that he was 475 pounds. Couldn't have written that one. And he did talk a little bit about the pain of being that overweight. You know, that stuff that I have not experienced. I have not experienced going into a restaurant and constantly worrying that they're not going to have a spot that will hold me. Or buying a car that doesn't have long enough seat belts or something like that. I've never experienced that. But most of what he said, I've experienced. Now, the big thing that really touched me is the fact that this guy did not have a traumatic childhood. He actually talks about, he says, if I had to change anything about my childhood and my parents, I wouldn't. It was all love. And I have actually sat back and I've thought about it. I'm like, what happened to me to make me overweight? What happened? And, you know, I even read, when I read the memoir from Andy Mitchell that I reviewed, and you can check out that review if you want, I actually kept asking myself, do I need to go to therapy to find out what's wrong with me? What happened to make me this way? Because every time I read a memoir about being overweight, people can pinpoint what happened to them. They can pinpoint. And I just sit back and be like, I just like food. There's nothing bad in my childhood. There's nothing traumatic. I just like food. Food is love. Food is my friend. And nobody ever seems to get that. In all of these memoirs, it's always like, I was beaten as a child, my parents didn't feed me, whatever. And I'm not trying to downplay other people's problems. I'm trying to say that every time I read it, I'm like, that didn't happen to me. That didn't happen to me. And so this book was refreshing because it didn't happen to him either, unless we're both in denial. But it didn't happen to him. He actually talks about how his parents and his family feeds out of love. His dad brought him home a thing of chocolate milk one day, and he saw how much he loved it. And his father, to make his son happy and to show that he loved his son and that he was thinking of him, started bringing him home chocolate milk and a snack every day when he came home from work. His father wasn't doing anything malicious. His father was loving him, but it was setting it up for habits. My family's the same way. We love by food. We do. When we lived in Florida, we used to come up from Florida to visit family, and we would arrive at my grandmother's house, and she'd be like, Boo Boo Bear, which is what she called my brother at the time. Boo Boo Bear, I have a big pot of beef rice soup for you because I know you love it. And Mary Fran, I know you like toast with strawberry jelly, so I bought a jar of strawberry jelly for you. And oh my word, we know you like Miss Nallie's filled cookies, so I made sure she made some and we have them here at the house. Love. It's love. And this author had the same experience. You feed with love. You show your love with food. It was so refreshing for me to hear that, because most people, it's not going to create something else, but for some of us, it will create an addiction for food. So this book, he intersperses his story throughout the time. He talks about his childhood, his college years, his career, and the whole way through, he's actually talking about it. And what sparked him to lose weight was his sister, who was overweight. She had something that should have been easily taken care of, and it was brought on by weight, and she died. And it brought him to his knees in fear, because he's like, that's going to be me. So he started to try, but he was like, I've tried Weight Watchers, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried that. Diets don't work. And so he decided that he wasn't going to diet. He wasn't going to try to restrict his calories so far. He wasn't going to try to do this, this, and that. He was going to try to just start making healthier choices. He was going to do it the slow way. And at the end of each chapter, he actually follows another month. Beginning of the month weight, end of the month weight, year total weight. And let me tell you, his weight was not going down fast. I mean, as I'm reading it, I'm like, dude, you're 475 pounds. You should have lost more than 5 pounds. But he kept saying, I'm doing this slow. I need to be creating a lifestyle that I can live with. And I'm doing it slow. And as I'm reading, like I said, part of me was like, dude, lose more weight. And I know that he should have been doing it fast, because at 475, you don't have a lot of wiggle room. You've got to get that weight off. But yet, at the same time, I fell in love with the concept of slow and not worrying about it. He did have gain months, and he's like, you know what? I can pinpoint why. We had to put my dog to sleep. I ate out of stress. Or whatever. But he didn't stress it. He was like, you know what? I know why. Next month is going to be better. What got me was not the fact that he was so big and he should have been losing mad pounds, or that he needed to lose mad pounds. What touched me the most was the fact that 3 pounds for the month, and he was happy. There was never I should have lost more that month because of this. No. He was like, I lost 3 pounds. I made positive progress. I had a good month. How often do I sit back and I'm like, I only lost 1 pound. I didn't lose any pounds this month. I didn't lose anything this week. And it's a negative. There should be no negative. If I'm making healthier choices, then I'm doing good. So that one really got me, because I'm like, dude is making his life changes one step at a time, and he's not worried about what the scales are saying. As long as they're going in the right direction, that's all that mattered. And when it didn't, that was for him to look and find out why, calculate, and move on. That was my take. If you read the book, let me know what you think. So that was the one thing. The other thing is, he talks a lot about how he's lost out on a lot in life. How weight is a fear, and it keeps you from doing other things that you need to do. And he talks about food, and how this friend called food really takes the place of a lot of things in your life and builds up a wall between you and other people. I'm telling you, everything he said, I've actually written on my website one time or another. He calls it You Suck FM radio station that plays in your head. I call it the mini-me. I have a mini-me. It's a fat mini-me. It sits in my head and it tells me bad things. My friend, eat that cake. It's good. It's really good. When I was running, I remember one day I was running and I was like 3 miles in. And I was 3 miles. And this mini-me in my head started telling me, you can't do it. You're never going to be a runner. Look at you fat thing running. And it was feeding me this stuff. And I literally started to cry as I ran. And finally I was like, no. And I started yelling at the voice in my head out loud. I know, I'm crazy. Luckily I was out in the woods, so nobody heard me that I know of. And, but I have a voice in my head. And luckily, the more you stop listening to the voice and get control, the good voice comes in. And you hear that more often. But he actually talks about that voice in your head that is telling you that you're not worth it, that you're there, that you're this, that you're bad, that you, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's my mini-me. I have a good mini-me too. I have a bad mini-me and a good mini-me. The bad mini-me is usually louder than the good mini-me. But with ignoring the bad mini-me, for me, it's the mini-me's. I have a bad one and a good one sitting on my shoulder. I could keep talking about comparisons, the mini-me's, the self-loathing, the everything. This book just touched me because it was so similar to where I've been and what I feel. What was neat about it is it was neat to hear it all from somebody else's perspective, because I was able to read his words and it put things together in my mind. Just like I'm sure if he read my words in my blog, he probably would have said, oh wow, makes sense, I got this. So it was very, very neat to see that. And so I would highly recommend this book because it just puts a lot into perspective. He talked about a lot of aspects of being overweight and a lot of the emotional drama that comes with it. Anyway, I highly recommend this book. This book really touched me. This book put a lot into perspective, and it's a good book. Now, at the end of the book, I'm not going to tell you he did lose weight. I'm not going to tell you how much, and I'm not going to tell you if he lost it all because I don't want to ruin the book for you. I did actually go online to see what he's lost and if he's maintained it, because the book was written about 10 years ago. Didn't dig too deep, but I didn't find too much. Anyway, that was our book review for today. It was an uplifting book for me because it really just cemented a lot of things in my head. No excuses.